And welcome to today's meeting of the Perth and Kinross Licensing Board of 15th of August. I'd like to introduce the members of the board to you. From my right-hand side, we have Councillor Stewart, Councillor McPherson, Councillor Williamson, myself, convener, Councillor Barrett, clerk to the board, Colin Elliott, Councillor Chris Ahern and Councillor Hugh Anderson. Oh, and apologies, Councillor Andrew Parrott. That's for me making a list, Andrew, and then going by that rather than looking, so apologies for that. Also in the chamber we have licensing manager Deborah Gilkison, and Licensing Standards Officer Louise Robinson. So, Louise Cormack. Okay. And we also have apologies from Bailey Brock and Councillor James. There's no other apologies. Okay. Item 2 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest to be made? No. Okay. Item 3.1 on our agenda is the minutes of the meeting of the 4th of July for approval and signature. Can you give me your approval to sign the minutes? Agreed? Thank you. Item 3.2 on our agenda is the minutes of the meeting of the 7th of July for approval and signature. Do members agree? Agree. Agree. Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda is our agenda items, and item 5 is the annual functions report covering the 1st of April 2021 to the 31st of March 2022. And can I ask Deborah Gilkison, Licensing Manager, to speak to the report? Deborah.
Good morning. Good morning. I present to the board the annual functions report for 21-2022. As you will see from my report, there have been quite a few major applications due to various reasons, which include to add off sales, deliveries, outdoor areas, outdoor drinking. Major variations received in 2021 was 21, compared to 25 in 21-22. In 21-22, the board received 21 new premises licence applications compared to 18 in 2020-2021. So all looking good and showing promise for the coming year ahead as businesses begin to thrive once more. Surprisingly, only 2 cases were brought before the board due to non-payment of annual fees out a total of 606 premise licence annual fees due. I asked the board to note the contents and approve the annual functions report to enable me to upload the report to the alcohol licensing webpage and again provide a copy to the Scottish Government. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Deborah. And are there any questions for Mrs. Gilkison? Councillor Parrott.
Thank you very much, convener. Can I ask, there is reference to the licensing forum being stood up again with the intent of informing the board's policy that has to be done within 18 months of the election. Can I ask for some detail on when it's proposed that the licensing forum first meets? Thank you.
I can maybe help you with that. There was a meeting planned by the chair of the licensing forum, but due to annual leave and due to sickness, that meeting did not go ahead. So I'm now waiting on a future date for the licensing forum to meet again.
Okay, thank you for that. I hope that is sort of moved forward expeditiously so that the licensing forum can play their, if you like, full role in the preparation of the policy. Thank you.
And Councillor Parrott, I'm happy to try and expedite that. So, thank you. Are there any other questions for Mrs. Gilkison? No, in which case can we agree to approve the annual functions report? Agreed. Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is the report to the board of the annual financial report for 21-22. It's on page 33 of your pack onwards, and it covers the period from the 1st of April 2021 to the 31st of March 2022. And can I ask Deborah Gilkison, Licensing Manager, to speak again to the report? Thank you.
I present to the board the financial statement for 21 to 2022. Perth and Kinross Licensing Board are required under Section 9B of the Licensing Scotland Act 2005 to publish an annual financial report at the end of the relevant financial year. This has to be published on the Perth and Kinross Council website and a copy provided to the Scottish Government once approved by the board. You may wish to note that due to recent work pressures within the licensing department, I have had to recruit an additional member of staff, and so next year's financial statement will show an increased expenditure figure. I therefore ask the board to note the contents and approve the financial statement for 2021-2022. I thank you.
Thanks very much, Deborah. Councillor Hearn, you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much. It's my understanding that the licensing department is self-financing, so therefore isn't there to make a profit. And I just wondered if we could if there must be an explanation, or maybe an explanation as to why there's a profit of 65,430, which seems to be quite excessive.
I would have to come back to you with that. That's out with my remit, but I will certainly come back to you with that.
Yeah, and I think the clerk to the board would like to add to that, Councillor.
Yeah. I agree in general that the board is to be self-funding. Normally it works the other way around. It's making sure there's enough fees to come in to be self-funding rather than not making a profit. It actually usually works the other way around. And I think, as Licensing Manager said, there's the costs are going to increase next year. It's a very big generality, and I appreciate it's a big generality. I know other boards have this issue as well. It's very hard to put your intangibles in this. And to actually come up with, accurate figures. But in terms of providing you an explanation as to where we are, well, first of all, we didn't go down in the premises licenses anywhere near we expected, sort of COVID. My recollection is the two, going back to the functions report, the two that were revoked is very low. And actually it was 2 full years of annual fees that applied to. We delayed picking those up. So we've not had the impact we expected. But overall, I have to say it's not my remit as to all the kind of calculation of financial matters, but it's something we could explore and come back to you later on.
Do you want a supplementary on that, Councillor Hearn?
Yeah, it's just, it would be good to have a feedback because, and I don't know what if there was a profit in the previous years, but if it's continuing to make a profit, you need to look at what the fees we're charging. So an explanation around all that would be helpful. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I think we can get that circulated to the board, and I think it would also be useful to have the full costs of the new employee, which I think would bring the figure into some context. Obviously reflects existing workload, and as it says in the report that the accommodation costs aren't factored into or aren't deducted from the quote surplus figure that we've got in front of us. Are there any other questions? No. Okay. Yeah, please, Hugh.
The final statement of the report states that if the accommodation costs were allocated and put into the budget, the costs here for the past year, you're saying we wouldn't be making a surplus possibly. Is it usual that accommodation costs are chargeable against the board operation?
This is something which I'm aware from previous years that is a possibility. Each board does it differently. However, we've been asked by the Scottish Government to apply it as consistently as we can. Yes, it could be applied. However, it's quite a complex thing. It's an intangible gain, a complex thing to calculate. That's as much as I can say, because we do rely on our finance service to provide those figures. They know better than I. You're talking to a lawyer who can't count, basically. So we do rely on them. But as I say, what we'll do is we'll go up to the legal manager it is and beyond, and then see whether we can get a fuller explanation for you and come back to you on that.
And with that, can we agree, 1, to note the content of the financial statement as in Appendix 1, and 2, to publish the report? Are we agreed? Thank you very much. Okay. Item 7 on our agenda is the report to the Board of the Gambling Statement of Principles 2022. It's from page 39 onwards in your papers. And this is a report on the consultation responses received on the draft Statement of Principles under the Gambling Act of 2005. And can I ask Deborah Gilkison, Licensing Manager, to speak to the report? Thank you.
I present to the Board the draft Statement of Principles under Section 349 of the Gambling Act 2005. This is the end of the process that commenced under the previous Board. It is a legal requirement for each licensing authority to prepare a statement of principles they propose to apply in exercising functions under the Gambling Act 2005. This must be reviewed every 3 years. The proposed statement largely replicates previous statements, as the content of the statement is largely dictated by the legal framework, and therefore there is very limited scope to deviate from this. With one consultation response received, one amendment is now proposed. It is proposed that the Board note the comments provided by the Racecourse Association and the amendment made at paragraph 13.5. The amendment adds a cross-reference to paragraph 19.5, recognising that children and young persons are permitted to enter track areas where facilities for betting are provided on days when dog racing and/or horse racing takes place. It is further proposed that the Board then approves its statement of principles and that the policy have effect until January 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Deborah. Are there any questions for Mrs. Gilkison? No. Okay, in which case do we agree to approve the amended statement? Oh, apologies, Councillor Parrott. Comment.
Thank you. Yes, just to comment, if I may. I've noticed that the I've lost it now. At 13.5 in Part B, it's recognised at paragraph 19.5 that children and young persons are permitted to enter track areas. Is it not actually at 19.6 that that's recognised?
You are correct, Councillor Parrott, and we will make the relevant changes to that. Thank you.
Okay.
So, noting that discrepancy, which will be corrected, can we agree to approve the amended statement of principles for the purpose of publication? Thank you very much. And that takes us to item 8.1, which is our first premises license application. We're running ahead of time. Colin, Shona, would you be able to bring in Kirsty Laird from Cafe Kisa? Thank you. Good morning, Kirsty. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, great. Welcome to today's meeting of the Licensing Board. I'm Councillor Peter Barrett, convener of the Licensing Board. I'll introduce my colleagues from my right and the officers as well. So on my far right, I have Councillor Stewart, Councillor McPherson, Councillor Parrott, Councillor Williamson, myself, then we have Colin Elliott, Clerk to the Board, Councillor Ahern and Councillor Anderson. We have Louise Cormack, Licensing Standards Officer, and Deborah Gilkinson, Licensing Manager in the Chamber as well. So.
Perfect.
So this is a premises licenses application for Cafe Kiza at 127 to 129 High Street, Auchterarder. And can I ask the Deputy Clerk to introduce the application?
Thank you, Convener. As members already aware, Kirsty Laird is present to put forward for the applicant. She, as I understand it, is a director of the company applying. This is an application for a full premises licence. Section 50 certificates are in place for planning and food hygiene. Section 50 certificate is not in place for building standards. They commented that a completion certificate is required for the proposed development, but to date none has been submitted. A completion certificate should be submitted in relation to the works, detailed on the building warrant once the work's been completed. Now, I just ask members to note, as you'll be aware, for a provisional premises licence, only planning permission needs to be in place. So you could downgrade to provisional, and the kind of confirmation to a full premises licence will be dealt with under delegated powers. Now, Police Scotland have advised the applicant and connected persons do not have any relevant offences, and we don't have any report of antisocial behaviour on the premises within a 50-metre radius of the premises in the last year. Now, for members' information, planning permission was granted on the 28th of January 2020 for change of use to form a restaurant, alterations, formation of external seating area, installation of an extract vent and associated works. Relevant planning conditions include condition 8 on the planning: no music amplified or otherwise shall be permitted in the outdoor seating area any time, and 9, the hours of operation of the outdoor seating area shall be restricted to between 0800 and 2200 hours Monday to Saturday. Now, just point out to members that the use of the outdoor area sought in this alcohol premises licence application has been restricted to match the planning conditions, so therefore they do dovetail each other. Now, members, you have a copy of the proposed location and layout plan with your papers, and no objections have been received, and I have nothing more to add, Convener.
Thank you for that. Kirsty, I'd like to invite you as applicant to speak to your application. Thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, my name is Kirsty Laird. I'm going to be the new upcoming owner of Cafe Kiza, along with my fiance Samuel Whiteman, who is currently the operations manager for Cafe Kiza and has been for the last 10 plus years. It's a family business, so we'll be taking it on from my mother and father-in-law, Kim and Sam Whiteman, who have Cafe Kiza currently. They have Kizas in Perth and they have Les Jardins in Kinross. I have worked in the hospitality industry since I was 16 years. My first job was actually in Cafe Kiza back when I was 16. So I've worked in hospitality for the majority of my career. I worked at bars while I was at uni, and then I went on to do hospitality marketing, sorry. I worked at Grief Hydro family of hotels for 7+ years, where I dealt with kind of food and beverage promotions on and off site, as well as kind of wider promotions for the group. I am currently a group marketing manager, about to finish up actually, as a group marketing manager for the Fusion Group of hotels down in Stirling. Since we've began discussions over a couple of years ago with regards to the progression of Cafe Kiza and taking it over the road, I've become part of the business on a weekly basis, getting to know the business, working in the business, and under the mentorship of my mother-in-law, Kim. Cafe Kiza is currently located at 128 High Street, so basically our application is to move the restaurant across the road to the old Bank of Scotland. We're hugging everything, we're taking it across, we're taking all the team We're taking all the management, everybody's coming with us. So they've been there for the restaurant manager, and a large majority of the team have been there since its opening 18 years ago. So we've got a good team that's coming with us. The new premises is roughly about 20% bigger in terms of covers. And the other addition we'll be adding is evening service. So Thursday to Sunday, which currently Cafe Gisa does not do, but has done in the past for various events like the Solheim and the G8 and things like that. So the team know what they're doing. They've also been invited if they want to go and work in Kisas. So we've been getting the team to go through and work evening service in Kisas as well, so that they can fully understand all of the elements that are involved.
Thank you very much for that, Kirsty. I'll now ask the board if they have any questions for you. Kirsty, there's no questions for you. Would you like to give any summing up?
We're very excited. We're very excited about this opportunity. The town's very excited. We're getting asked on a daily basis when we're opening. So yes, no, we're very excited, and we will continue to be part of the Kisas and Les Jardins kind of family business. My mother and father-in-law will be heavily involved in getting us set up and running. So yeah.
Kirsty, thank you very much for that. I think with that, we're now ready to come to a decision. Do we agree to downgrade the application to a provisional licence and thereafter grant subject to mandatory conditions? Can I also ask members about local conditions if they think any of those are applicable? And can I start with Councillor Stewart? Agreed. Councillor McPherson? Agreed. Councillor Parrott? Thank you. Councillor Williamson?
Agreed.
Councillor Ahern?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. I had a senior moment there. And myself, I agree as well there. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And apologies for that, Hugh. So, thanks very much, Kirsty.
Thank you.
Sorry, Convener, just to confirm that the application has been downgraded, which means that the confirmation required later on will be dealt with under delegated powers, but it's been granted subject to managed conditions with no local conditions, and that's it dealt with.
Thanks very much. Right. Okay. We're now moving on to 8.2. Item 8.2 on our agenda is a premises licence application for Harrison Fine Wines. It's on page 83 of your pack, page 83 onwards. It's a premises licence application for Harrison's at 39 to 41 King Street, Crieff. And can I ask the Deputy Clerk to introduce the application?
Thank you, Convener. You have no appearance today. The applicants wish to participate by way of written representation, which is before you. This application is for a full premises licence. Section 50 certificates are in place for planning, building standards and now food hygiene. There was an issue with food hygiene, but that's now been resolved. Police Scotland have advised the applicant and connected persons do not have any relevant offences, and we have no report of antisocial behaviour on the premises or within a 50-metre radius in the last year. Now, as deliveries of alcohol are sought, Board Policy 5.22 on the delivery of alcohol to and consumption by persons under 18 or drunk persons is therefore relevant, and you have a copy of that in your papers. It is a matter for the Board whether it is necessarily expedient to impose a local condition on the licence, if granted, to reflect that policy. Now, you also have the supplementary information document before you, and all policies are indicated to be in place except for dispersal of patrons from the premises. Now, Susan Harrison is the proposed designated premises manager. However, she's already the designated DPM for another licensed premise. It's not permissible to be the DPM for more than one licensed premise. If you grant the application today, the confirmed premises licence will not be issued until the other premises licence, which is members have information in their pack. There's a kind of shifting of address here from one a street over to this new premise. Then once the previous, the existing licence for the other premises is surrendered, that will allow her to go on as DPM, but we can deal with that behind the scenes. You've also got a copy proposed location and layout plan with your papers. And lastly, convener, no objections have been received to the application. I have nothing more to add.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Clerk. Are there any questions for the Deputy Clerk? No? Okay. In which case, can I move that we grant, subject to mandatory conditions and a local condition, one, that written policies shall be in place for the premises and shall be implemented by the premises licence holder, and that all staff involved in the sale and consumption of alcohol, all to the continuing satisfaction of the board, for the taking of orders and subsequent delivery of alcohol out with the premises. And that the premises licence is not confirmed and issued until Susan Harrison is no longer the designated premises manager for another premise or is replaced by another designated premises manager. Are we agreed? And I'll start with Councillor Anderson this time. Councillor Ahern?
Agreed.
Councillor Williamson?
Agreed.
Councillor Parrott?
Agreed.
Councillor McPherson?
Agreed.
And Councillor Stewart. Thank you very much. Is there anything that you wish to add?
Nothing more to add, convener. That's very clear that it's granted subject to mandatory conditions and one local condition, which is your delivery of alcohol condition, with the licence not to be confirmed and issued until the DPM has been resolved.
And just for the record, Councillor Parrott is having to leave the meeting now. Have we got time to move on to 8.3? Yeah, okay. Item 8.3 on our agenda is a premises licence application for Huffman's Limited, trading as Boxworks, Unit 1 Logrove Place, Inverarmond Industrial Estate in Perth. And can I ask the Deputy Clerk to introduce the application?
Thank you, convener. Like the last application, there's no appearance here. You have a written representation from the applicants. Excuse me. The application is for a full premises licence. We have Section 50 certificates in place for planning, building standards and food hygiene. Again, Police Scotland, there are no convictions or relevant offences confirmed, and there's no report of antisocial behaviour on the premises or within a 50-metre radius of premises in the last year. The applicants, Huffman's Limited, already have another premises licence nearby at Unit 1, Inverarmond Road. This application is for an additional premises licence. Now, in the supplementary information document that the applicant has provided, all policies will be in place except for in relation to the sale of alcohol to drunk persons and dispersal of patrons. However, as members will note from the papers, the proposed operating plan does state that there will be policies and procedures in place to prevent deliveries to under 18s or drunk persons. Now, as deliveries of alcohols are sought, as you heard me on the last application, policy 5.22 is relevant, and it's a matter for the board whether it's necessary or expedient to impose a local conditional licence, if granted, to reflect that policy about deliveries. However, it should be noted that the proposed operating plan details that policies and procedures will be in place for deliveries. It's therefore whether you think it's going to be appropriate to condition when it's already basically stated in the operating plan. Now, you have a copies of the proposed location and layout plan for your information in your papers. The premises did operate an occasional licence way back 9th to the 22nd of December 2021, but not recently, and no objections have been received to the application. That's it, convener.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions to the Deputy Clerk? No. In which case, can I move that we grant, subject to mandatory conditions and local condition 1, that written policy shall be in place for the premises? We don't need to do that. Right. Okay. So are we agreed to apply the local condition for the taking of orders and subsequent delivery of alcohol out with the premises? Councillor Anderson. Agreed. Councillor Ahern. Councillor Williamson.
Agreed.
Councillor McPherson and Councillor Stewart. All right. Deputy Clerk, is there anything that you wish to add?
Thank you, Convener. Sorry for that pause there. It's just simply, as long as members are clear that although there's a statement in the operating plan, what you've done is grant subject to mandatory conditions and a local condition to have a written policy in place to do with the deliveries. So you're making that secure as a local condition. I've nothing more to add.
Okay. Item 9.1 on our agenda was a major variation application for a newsagent at 33 Garth Avenue in Perth. Unfortunately, we have received a message late last week that the premises licence holder has been delayed abroad due to a cancelled flight and cannot make today's board to present their application and assist in answering any questions. Can the board therefore just note that this matter is deferred until a future meeting of the board? Neither objector is present, although they will be informed of the deferral. Can we agree?
Agree.
Great, thank you.
Convener, at this point, we've got two more applications, both of which have been dealt with the same agent. Perhaps if we have a short adjournment, I'll speak to the agent and we'll get ready for those two.
Are the board agreed?
Yeah, just be aware, members, excuse me, throat's going this morning. Just be aware, members, that I think although Shauna, you could bring the screen across and we'll be muted, I think you might still be seen in the thumbnails. So if you just give me a few minutes, we won't be too long.
You can fly inside the piece of Florence. Truly romantic since you last consequence of peace with Florence.
Okay, I think we're ready to resume the meeting, and the next item on our agenda is item 9.2, a major variation application for the spa at Meagle. Can I ask that the premises licence holder, now you're here in person rather than joining by video, which is kind of what I expected. I'll just introduce the board to you. On my far right, we have Councillor Stewart, Councillor McPherson, Councillor Williamson, myself, Councillor Barrett, convener of the board, Deputy Clerk to the board, Colin Elliott, and Councillor Ahern and Councillor Anderson. And we also have the Licensing Standards Officer, Louise Cormack, and the Licensing Services Manager, Deborah Gilkison, in the chamber as well. So, as I say, this is a major variation for the spa in the Square Meagle, and can I ask the Deputy Clerk to introduce the application?
Thank you, Convener. Just to say it's the premises licence holder agent that's sitting before you. It's now Hazard from TLT. The proposed variation primarily seeks to firstly increase off-sales hours to the maximum of 10 a.m. to 10 p.m, 7 days per week. Secondly, to add recorded music and gaming, which is National Lottery, as activities in the licence. And thirdly, detail the activities taking place, including deliveries. My understanding is that SPA are looking to regularise their premises licences across Scotland as far as possible. Now, as deliveries of alcohol are sought, policy 5.22 on the delivery of alcohol to consumption by persons under 18 or drunk persons is therefore relevant. Again, you have a copy of that in your papers, members, and it's a matter for you whether it's necessary or expedient to impose a local condition on the varied licence if granted to reflect that policy. And lastly, Convener, no objection has been received to this variation application. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Deputy Clerk. Niall, can I ask you to speak to the application?
Yes, thank you, Convener. Your Honours, good morning. As the Deputy Clerk indicates, this application comes before you today as part of a wider project for SPA nationally. My colleagues and I have been looking across the SPA. Sorry, apologies. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I've been looking to regularise wherever possible the permissions for the SPA estate across Scotland, and also pick up any changes that have come about in sort of custom and practice in the convenience trade. One of which is, of course, during the period of the pandemic, there was the rise in home deliveries of everything. It is with a small wry smile at the whole idea of convenience stores where they were convenient to walk to. Now that's not convenient enough, so convenience stores will now actually be able to deliver within a set location and radius of those stores to people. It's a full grocery range that's proposed for the delivery, and may I say at the outset, there's no difficulty with any local condition on written policies and procedures being in place. SPA are a very reputable organisation, very responsible licence holders, and hopefully, as you would expect, they've done all of their due diligence in advance of engaging with, in this case, Snappy Shopper as the delivery agents. I'll not dwell too much on the Snappy Shopper, but I think it would be helpful if I give Your Honours a little overview of the practices, policies and procedures that are in place both in-store and through the Snappy Shopper app. So obviously in-store, all of the staff in a delivery store get full training in all the delivery requirements, which ultimately revolves around the packaging of the orders, the requirement to keep records in store of the price, quantity and description of the alcohol being sold, and also all of the technicalities around the timings of sales, the timings of deliveries, etc. So that's all done in store. The use of Snappy Shopper, who are not exclusive to SPA by any stretch of the imagination, comes about after a sort of tender process as to who would be best to suit. They are specialists in the convenience retail sector, and they operate an app-based system. Now, there's a customer app, which I'll not dwell too much upon. Anyone that's used any of the sort of home shopping apps will be familiar with what that looks like. But the driver or rider app. Again, moving more towards the sort of green side of things, wherever possible, having cyclist riders rather than cars being used for these deliveries, keeping it again local within the radius, is geared in such a way as to put due diligence at the absolute centre of it. So as the rider is being tracked using the app, the rider's app, to the actual delivery address, it's not a case of simply telling them at the outset, by the way, there's alcohol in this. People could forget. As they actually arrive and they log that they're arriving at the address, the app obviously can check them with the GPS. That's when the system kicks in. They get a reminder as they basically dismount or exit the vehicle that they have to go through the Challenge 25 process, and ultimately they have to do this on the app. So as they arrive at the premises and at the door, they're reminded of the age-restricted products that are in. They're asked to perform the Challenge 25 and log that on the app physically by signing that they have carried out the Challenge 25. Assuming I answer the door and look clearly over the age of 25, they will then be able to say, yes, the delivery was to someone clearly over the age of 25, sign that and hand over the full product, if you like, the full basket. If, however, there's any dubiety about that, and that could be about Challenge 25 or drunkenness, etc., then they would say no. They would then have to go through, if it's an age challenge, the age verification policy. So you could get someone 19, 20-year-old who doesn't meet the Challenge 25. The delivery driver then has to use the app to go through the Challenge 25 process. If ID is provided, then they will log what that ID was and again sign that off, and they can complete the delivery because the person, although looks under the age of 25, has ID available to prove that they are of age. So that's fine. If, however, it is a case where they don't meet the Challenge 25 criteria, they cannot produce the ID, so therefore it's no and then no again, then ultimately the app is set up in such a way that the alcohol products are removed by the driver. They're returned to the store, or rider, they're returned to the store, and then there's an automatic electronic refund of those products given to the customer because obviously they've been deducted out of the order. So it is, I think, a very impressive system. It is something which is end-to-end. Obviously, with the advent of the GPS, some people and boards have said to me it's a bit Big Brother, but ultimately the app knows exactly where the rider or driver is at every stage of the actual journey, and all of the prompts and all of the checks and balances are there. Now, with any of these app-based systems, it means that they can ultimately record everything electronically, but then it can be made available, emailed, printed off at request by licensing standards or by police or anything like that. So all of the refusal book criteria actually is very easy to comply with based on the app. Beyond that, I think the rest of the application, happy to take any questions on that, but that is about regularising it, having a unity with the other SPARs across the country, having activities such as shop radio available, having lottery taken care of, mentioning other things that might go on in store, like the odd charity day or community type thing. They'll not happen every weekend by any stretch of the imagination, but it just means that they know they've got cover because it's mentioned in the operating plan. I hope, Your Honours, in terms of taking a wee bit more time to explain the delivery process, that was helpful, but I wasn't trying to skirt over other elements of the application. So if there's any specific questions about anything else, please, happy to answer those. On that basis, subject to any questions, the motion would be for grant. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Hazard. Are there any questions? Councillor Williamson.
My question is around about the sale of national lottery tickets, and I was just wondering, are there any restrictions on the sale of lottery tickets, i.e. the times that they're allowed to be sold? I know they do have a cut-off prior to the draw, but out with that, are there any restrictions?
So in terms of the restrictions for the draw, you're absolutely right. Off the top of my head, I think that's 7:30, and it's on the date of the actual draw. In terms of the sale of lottery tickets, I'm unaware of any restriction that would apply because of the hours the stores trade. But yes, there will be a cut-off point. Again, I would have to double check. So this comes with a small caveat. I think the restriction is 11 o'clock for the scratch cards, but the stores don't typically trade to those times. So it's actually not a problem that they've encountered, in practice. It's not like a 24-hour petrol station or supermarket type scenario. So there's a small caveat there. I think from recollection, the lottery cuts off at 11, but I would have to go and double check. So if it is something that you're concerned about, I'm happy to take a few minutes on an adjournment and check.
Councillor Stewart.
I'd like to ask about your app. What's the staff training with regards to if there's IT outage?
In terms of a sort of catastrophic failure of the app or the signal falls, etc. So ultimately, in terms of the app, there's two parts to it. There is a part which is ultimately locally located on the device. So once the job is uploaded, it is stored on the device. So you would lose some of the functionality. But my understanding is the app itself can operate if, for example, you're in a sort of black hole area, it can still progress through. It's then loaded back to the server once the signal is reinstated. So you might lose some of the GPS tracking if there was a complete catastrophic failure beyond the control, but the app itself is locally downloaded onto the device. Once it's made contact with the server and the job's uploaded, the app can progress all of the stages that we narrated from the device itself. What would then be missing would be the beam back until such time as the device picked up its signal or the outage or whatever the other issue was resolved. Once that happened, you would get a upload. What would also be the case is that the drivers wouldn't be able to be assigned any new jobs during that period, so they would literally be stuck with the job that they were in process of completing. I hope that answers the question, but happy to take any follow-ups.
Do you have any follow-ups, Councillor Stewart?
No, thank you.
Are there any other questions? No. Is there any summing up you'd like to give, Mr. Hazard?
No, thank you.
Okay. In which case, I think we're now ready to come to a decision. Do we agree to vary the operating plan as sought with the added local condition 522 relating to deliveries? Councillor Stewart.
I agree.
Councillor McPherson.
Agreed.
Councillor Williamson.
Agreed.
I agree. Councillor Ahern and Councillor Anderson. Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything you'd like to add, Deputy Clerk?
Nothing to add. I think that's clear. Grants the variation as sought with a local condition relating to deliveries.
Obliged. Thank you.
And you're staying for this, all right. Item 10.1 our agenda is an occasional license application for other lands. It's on page 125 of the report. And can I ask that the police be brought into the meeting? Okay. All right. I've been advised that the police have been brought into the meeting, so could I ask the officers to introduce themselves, please?
Hi there, my name's Kerry Thompson-Craig and I'm a constable in the Divisional Licensing Department for Police Scotland.
Thank
Hello,
you, Kerry.
I'm Inspector Jamie Allen and I have licensing for Tayside.
Thanks, Jamie. Can I ask that the applicant's agent introduce themselves and his clients? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning again, Niall Hazard. I've moved one seat along to be closer to the clients this time round. I am on my immediate right, accompanied by Michael Donovan, who is the named applicant and will be the licence holder for the licences for the bars at the event, which I'll come on to explain. On my extreme right is Mr. Tom Ketley. He is the Director of Otherlands Limited and Fly Events, who are the festival organisers and promoters for the event. Mr. Ketley would like me to put on record the apologies for his somewhat festival attire. He has come down from Scone on the tools, so to speak, having been up there with regards to some of the build. So he is in welly boots and high vis. Apologies.
No problem at all. And I take it that you gentlemen were present earlier when the board were introduced. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Can I just say that this is an occasional licence application for Otherlands Artist and Guest Campsite Bar in the Scone Palace grounds. And can I ask the Deputy Clerk to introduce the application?
Thank you, Convener. 12 occasional licence applications have been submitted for a new Otherlands Festival to take place at Skun Palace on Friday the 19th, which is this Friday, August 2022, to Sunday, 21st August 2022. And I have to say, with most people probably exiting on the Monday morning. 11 applications are being dealt with under delegated powers. They relate to the main arena area, including for traders. Those applications are within policy. The occasional licence application before the board today is not within board policy in respect of the on-sales licensed hours sought. In accordance with practice, where an occasional licence application is not within policy, delegated powers are not exercised and the application is brought before the board for determination. Now, members, it's important to remember that the board is determining only one application, not all of the festival alcohol applications. Now, details of the board's policy hours and why this application is contrary to board policy are set out in the Licensing Standards Officer's report. An alcohol management plan and a site plan now accompany this application, and you have copies before you. The site plan contains a lot of detail, and I appreciate most of you only have an A4 level, but the proposed artist and guest campsite bar is not located in the main arena. It can instead be seen in approximately the middle left of the plan of the campsite areas. It's coloured in green and labelled BR7 Artist Guest Bar. It's adjacent to the public campsite area and just below the staff artist camping area, and it's also next to the River Tay. To my recollection as Deputy Clerk, a pay bar for artists and guests of artists has not been sought previously for other major festivals in the area, at least not for beyond policy hours. Green rooms, as members will be familiar with what green rooms are, may have operated at other festivals beyond policy hours. However, they do not require an occasional licence where the provision of alcohol is free. This particular application is seeking beyond hours, and there is to be the sale of alcohol. Now, the board has in the past applied conditions to occasional licences of large events, that the licence holder shall operate at all times in accordance with the alcohol management plan and the layout, or here, the site plan, and that refusal logs or records are made available to the board within 2 months of the event taking place. Points that can be noted from the alcohol management plan are firstly that there's a slight discrepancy in that the AMP refers to 6 stages operating, whereas the occasional licence application refers to 5 stages at the festival. And secondly, the level of door supervision is not stated other than referring to 1 supervisor per 15 metres of bar frontage, although I'm aware Mr Hazard will be updating you on the level of door supervision for this application. There have been no objections by members of the public to the application. And lastly, Convener, for members' information, and some will know, a public entertainment licence was granted by the Licensing Committee on the 3rd of August, just about 10 days or so ago. I've nothing more to add.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Clerk. Can I ask Mrs Louise Cormack, Licensing Standards Officer, to speak to her report? Louise.
Morning, everybody. Referring to the application submitted by TLT solicitors on behalf of Barworks, the event organisers, and specifically Michael Donovan, the occasional licence applicant, I can advise that in addition to the occasional licence application, alcohol management plan and site plan are also submitted to support all applications for occasional licence. The applications for occasional licence confirm that description of activities taking place comprise of a ticketed music festival event with camping and noted to be strictly over 18s only. As is usual course for major events, organisers were invited to attend safety advisory group meetings and have been assisted through that process. Following those meetings, further discussions have taken place with the event organisers, TLT solicitors, Police Scotland and myself, the purpose of which is to give support and assistance in the preparation of this and other applications, and in particular the alcohol management plan. The event organisers and applicant have considered the feedback from those discussions and adjusted their plans accordingly. The occasional licence application relates to one of 12 bars for Otherlands event, an artist and guest campsite bar to be located adjacent to the public campsite and services. The application requests on sales between the hours of Friday 1800 hours 03 AM, Saturday 1600 hours 03 AM, and Sunday 1600 hours 02 AM. It is noted that this outlet is not for the general public, with entry and exit to be restricted, and this is to be controlled by site security, and the capacity of the area is 290 persons. I'm generally content with the alcohol management plan version 1.7 provided, although the following points still need to be confirmed, perhaps by way of conditions. Individual bar management team details to be provided to the Licensing and Standards Officer no later than Wednesday, 17th of August, and the number of SIA registered door supervisors to be agreed with myself no later than Wednesday, 17th of August, with those door supervisors to be on duty during peak hours and within the vicinity of the bar, all until half an hour after each terminal hour or half hour after closure of the bar, whichever is the earlier. It should be acknowledged that there are other event plans in operation which capture more detail on stewarding arrangements. It is understood that there is no entertainment taking place within this bar area, therefore the licensing board policy hours applicable are, strictly speaking, social demand hours. They are 11 AM to 12:30 AM on Fridays and Saturdays, and 11 AM to 12 midnight on Sundays. Taking a broader view that this bar links to the overall event and the entertainment being provided on site, it can be said that the licensing board hours for functions are more appropriate. They are 11 AM to 1:30 on Friday and Saturdays, and 11 AM to 1 AM on Sundays. The alcohol management plan confirms the last entertainment in the main arena for the event will be up until 1 AM Friday and Saturday and 12 midnight on Sunday. This occasional licence application seeks a terminal hour of 3 AM on Friday and Saturday nights and 2 AM on Sunday night. The application is therefore in excess and contrary to the licensing board policy. This application is referred to the licensing board is for the board to take a decision on whether this individual application is of such significance to warrant departure from this policy. Should the licensing board take a decision to approve this licence, I would ask the board to consider 2 additional conditions to the above. The licence holder shall at all times operate in accordance with the submitted alcohol management plan, including appendices, and with the site plan, and the licence holder shall make available to the board copies of refusal logs or other refusal records within 2 months of the event taking place. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions for Licensing Standards Officer? Councillor Williamson?
Yeah, but could I have waited until his presentation?
Oh, sorry if I got ahead of myself.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Louise, on page 159 of the document Appendix 8, I'm just seeking clarity on the cost of the alcohol that's being sold. My understanding is that it should be an equal cost. It shouldn't be, it's deemed as though it's a promotion. And the glasses of wine work out a lot cheaper than the sales of the bottles. So should that be an equal cost across the piece?
The applicants are required to meet the minimum unit pricing policy. What their pricing structure is, the applicants may be better placed to answer that question, but they are required to meet the minimum unit pricing policy.
Thank you very much for that, Louise. Are there any other questions? No. Okay, thank you for that. Can I now invite the police to speak to their representation?
Thank you. Just a moment. So on the 26th of July 2022, Police Scotland submitted a letter of representation to Perth and Kinross Licensing Board with regards to the occasional licence application submitted by Michael Donovan for the Otherlands Festival scheduled to take place at Scone Palace between the 19th and the 21st of August 2022. The occasional licence application specifically relating to Bar 7, which is the artist and guest bar, situated within the staff and artist campsite adjacent to the public campsite. The proposed hours of operation being 1800 hours to 3 AM on Friday, 1600 hours to 3 AM on Saturday, and 1600 hours to 2 AM on Sunday. The bar is designed to reduce the number of artists and guests backstage out with their performance times and to provide a managed area for their alcohol consumption. There will be no entertainment provided within the bar. The area is purely for the consumption of alcohol and to allow the artist and their guests to mingle and relax after their performances. Since the area is solely for the consumption of alcohol, there is a risk that excessive drinking could lead to crime and disorder. Bar 7 is intended to remain open after the arena entertainment has terminated. The festival entertainment terminates at 1 AM on Friday and Saturday and midnight on Sunday. And the latest public bar in the arena will also terminate at 1 AM on Friday and Saturday and midnight on Sunday. Whilst access to Bar 7 is limited to 290 patrons and there is to be security on the entry and egress points, this is still a large amount of people, and were the area to achieve a full capacity, it could generate noise that could carry into the adjacent campsite areas and cause nuisance to the residents there. Furthermore, the proposed terminal hour is contrary to the board's licensing policy with regards to social and demand hours, where there's no specific entertainment provided. In these instances, the terminal hour would be midnight on Friday and Saturday and midnight on the Sunday. Police Scotland, whilst we make no objection to the application, with cognizance of the licensing objectives for preventing crime and disorder and preventing public nuisance, we consider that the proposed terminal hours be excessively late and recommend that the terminal hour be amended to 2 AM on the Friday and Saturday evenings and 1 AM on the Sunday evening. This would allow an extra 1 hour's grace for the final performers and their guests to unwind after the event and prevent excessive alcohol consumption. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions for the police? Could I ask the police what they would consider to be suitable levels for door security to the entrance to the Bar 7 area?
I was recently in receipt of details from the applicant's solicitor with regards to what the stewarding would be on the area. It's my understanding that there will be one SIA member of security staff that's on the area. However, depending on how busy it is, that could become fixed to potentially 2 SIA. But I think that they'll be in a better position to detail specifically what the stewarding is on the area, and I understand that there are also response teams that will be patrolling on the site, and they will be deployed when and if they are required, and that the stewards who are licensed will be backed up by stewards that that are there for managing crowds, etc., that are unlicensed. But I think that they'd probably be in a better position to specify exactly what stewarding they have in place on the day.
Thank you for that. Can I just double check there are no further questions for the police? No. In which case, can I ask the applicant's agent to speak to the application? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. At the outset, looking along the line, I think quite a few members were present 10 days ago when I gave a general overview of the festival. I don't propose to do that again, albeit I can. I've got the same pack available. If any member would like a refresher, please feel free either now or later to ask for that. What I would like to do is perhaps focus in on the salient points of the Bar 7 application. But as I say, I'm more than happy to go back and give a more general overview if that would be helpful at any stage. So in terms of the applications today, the only background information I would like to do is introduce Mr. Donovan, who's ultimately going to operate the bars. Mr. Ketley's here from Fly Events and Otherlands, the promoters and organisers, and ultimately will be responsible for the event as a whole. Mr. Donovan is working with Barworks and his own company, Sips Events, who have been established now some 6 years, operating pop-up bars at various events and festivals all over Scotland. There's a bit of a focus on the Central Belt, but not exclusively, and he has significant experience actually working in Perth and Kinross out with the Central Belt. Last weekend, Mr. Donovan's company were doing the bars at Perth Races. Next weekend's Otherlands, but the weekend after that, he's contracted at the Blair Athol Horse Trials. And actually, he's done several events at Scone in the past as well, including the game fair. So well experienced in events generally, experience in Perth and Kinross, and a sort of known entity, if I may. So that's just a little bit of sort of background to that. In terms of the application for you today, it's funny when someone else can sum up the application perhaps better than you, and you try and figure a different way to say it. But I think that the police letter actually is a very good summary of what the application's about. This is about backstage restricted access bar for artists and guests with the sole purpose of allowing them after their performance to decompress, to socialise, to meet other artists, other people in the industry, and to have somewhere to go which isn't in the main crowd, and similarly the main crowd will not be permitted there. I'll come back and touch on the stewarding arrangements in a second. In terms of the reasons for that, there are a number of reasons. One, it's fairly commonplace within festivals to have an area for artists and guests to be able to go away from the main crowd for obvious reasons. The second thing is, given that this is a sort of weekend camping festival, we've got a high density number of artists coming in over a number of days. They will typically be coming in using their own transport. They will bring some of their own items and articles, etc. So by the time they get effectively off stage and their crew load up their bits and bobs, there's somewhere for them to actually go and relax and to meet people, as I say. And that runs right through for the artists that are performing into the evening. And as you've heard, the final performances in the arena will be 1 a.m. So there is a desire, and again, that the police have suggested there is a desire to have some overrun for those artists that are performing towards the end to still have the same facility as those that are performing during the day. A couple of things I think to draw out of the general introduction and indeed the questions or comments made thus far. It is perhaps unusual to have a paid for artist and guest bar as opposed to what would be traditionally a free green room. But I would suggest that that is not a bad thing at all. Indeed, I think it's a positive move in the right direction. In terms of the actual regulating the consumption of alcohol, having sales is a very, very good way to do that. Now, I don't suggest for 1 minute it would be a cash problem for the artists, but it is something where they need to interact with the bar staff who are required by law to undergo the same assessment of someone, whether they're famous or not, put bluntly, whether they're artists or guests, whether they're members of the public. Is the person intoxicated, or are there any other reasons why they shouldn't be served? So I think in that respect, I think it is a positive development. This isn't a case of people being able to go in and help themselves in a green room type environment. There's lots and lots of reasons for this. I'm happy to get into them, but generally speaking, it's a combination of factors. One, there's the responsible retailing of alcohol factor. Two, there's waste. With these types of free things, people will go and take things and etc. and not use them. And those members that were part of the committee heard about Otherland's commitment to recycling, to generally the environmental impacts, etc. 98% of all of the waste on sites recycled, but also they don't want to encourage or be responsible for just general waste and wantonness. And then the other thing is, of course, there's a cost element to putting on things for free. There's no getting away from that. Costs are going up across the board for all event organisers, promoters, etc. Artist costs are going up, agents costs are going up, and the cost of materials, etc. are skyrocketing. So they have to look at where it is sensible to do that. So I think that explains, hopefully, the reasons why, again, in my submission, there's a positive element to this requiring a license and going forward as a sales transactional basis. If I may, I'll move on to the stewarding arrangements. I'm very grateful to Ms. Cormack and Ms. Thompson-Craig for their interactions over the last couple of weeks as we've sought to just drill down into the stewarding element. Again, members that were part of the committee will have been presented with the Event Safety Management Plan, which had various appendixes. The Security and Crowd Management Appendix runs to some 69 pages and 4 maps covering the stewarding deployment. And what we've been in a process of doing is effectively distilling that down for use in the Alcohol Management Plan, where there is a greater focus on what provision there will be for each bars. So turning to bar 7, what we have generally speaking across the site is that when we were on the SAG, the Safety Advisory Group with Mr. Lyle and all the colleagues from the different appointments, there was a general expectation that our SIA stewards, so forget any event stewards that are there to do pathfinding and cloud liaison, etc. So the actual badged SIA stewards would be on a ratio of 1 to 150 guests. What we have just now is better than that. We're at 1 to 114 patrons. So we're at a better ratio generally. And what that's designed to do is take cognizance of the fact that this is the first year of the festival and to build in some flex to the general plan. Bar 7, you've got the opening times there. So it opens later in the day for obvious reasons. There'll be no one there before the performances. It would be after the performances. And Bar 7 is currently assigned one fixed SIA steward on that from opening time, and that would be the case until the redeployment happens. There'll be a redeployment after peak ingress, so there's a degree of flexibility about that. We need to see what time the crowd arrives, etc. But there'll be a redeployment taking that up to 2 fixed stewards. Now, having some degree of flexibility in that is obviously required. We need to see how the crowd movements work to allow the ingress, etc. But what we've said in correspondence is that no later than 10 p.m. That would go to 2, regardless of what's happening, because by 10 p.m. we're absolutely certain all peak ingress issues will be dealt with and all the redeployment can be done. But in addition to that, the single steward will be supported if required, if capacity is high, or if there's any issues, by the response teams, which are located in all of the main areas of the site, including into the campsite area. So hopefully that addresses some of that. The response teams are paired or more, so it's 2 or more stewards who are covering a general locale and can go when crowd management issues dictate, whether that be generally site movement or whether that be around any of the bars. And as I say, I come back to the point that we've agreed a better ratio on that stewarding to allow more of these response teams to be able to go and basically respond as required. A little bit, I suppose, of information coming at you there. So again, just by summary, one SAA steward monitoring the access, egress, etc., doing the checks at backstage area, special passes required to enter that area, etc., and then being supported as we anticipate that area will get busy later on in the evening, but also all of the ingress and redeployments will have been done elsewhere by no later than 10 p.m. I think it'll be earlier, but it will be by no later than 10 p.m. So from that point of view, that is where the application sits, Your Honours. In terms of the hours sought, we've been in discussion with all of the agencies involved. I think I would put it no higher than this. The fact is we run to 1 a.m. We would very much like, given the comments made, and I'm really grateful again to Ms. Cormack, etc., for taking a overview of the event. You know, it's not a situation where I think you could pigeonhole this with regards to the social hours under Your Honour's policy, because there is a whole event here attached to this. It's not like a pub. So, you know, having that degree of flex and flexibility suggested perhaps 1:30 is appropriate. The police have suggested 2. Obviously, we've started with 3. So we're really here before Your Honours to say we're not necessarily wishing to die in a ditch about 3 o'clock, but we are trying to convey the fact that we would like the overrun to allow to accommodate those artists and guests after their performances at the back end of the schedule of the programmed events. That's where we are. I'm happy to take any questions. The other thing is I realised there was a question about the pricing. I don't know if you'd like me to address that in general terms. Yes, so I think if I understood right, this relates to page 31 of the Alcohol Management Plan at Appendix 8. And it's to do with the concept of linear pricing. So in terms of the single serve, you'll notice that there's a slightly obscure single serve measure for the Pinot Grigio and the Sauvignon Blancs, etc. And for the wines generally, 187 millilitres. Those are individual products. Those are little plastic recyclable bottles. So they are a product in and of itself. I take the point that if you have, you know, a linear assessment, multiply that as to how many of those little bottles would be required to make a big bottle, but they're separate products. There is a general ban in terms of the mandatory conditions which attach to the occasional license, which prohibits any sort of promotion. You know, so you cannot say don't buy 3 little bottles of wine, buy a big bottle of wine. That would be where, in my submission, the line would be. And certainly there's absolutely none of that will be going on at the festival. The little bottles of wine are there if people want to buy them as an individual serve. It is a bespoke product. The larger bottles of wine are there again as a bespoke product. And there isn't a promotional activity around that to suggest that people, it's not like buy three little bottles, get the rest of the bottle free. It doesn't work like that. And I think if I understood right, that was the general concern, Your Honour. So hopefully that answers the question. It is a different product, and in terms of any linear pricing requirement, there'll be no promotion around that. So beyond that, in terms of closing, we hopefully have explained the nature of the bar, the reasons for the bar coming forward for a license as opposed to being simply a free offer in terms of a traditional green room. We've explained the bona fides of the applicant, the experience here. We've addressed the security detail and no difficulty, hopefully finalising those conversations in the timeframe suggested by Ms Cormack. And ultimately, Your Honours, we're in your hands with regards to hopefully the idea that there should be some overrun beyond the entertainment, but what the appropriate level of that actually is. And happy to take any questions, any discussion around that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr Hazard. Councillor Ahern has a question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to go back to the stewarding. Can I first of all, the area we're talking about for Bar 7, how many access points are there?
Apologies, I'll say that again. There's one main point of access to that, hence the one steward at the access point. And in terms of the map, it's AV12 in terms of the grid reference. There's a little grid reference down there, so it's away from the main arena, which is located to the bottom of the map. So hopefully that helps. I don't know if you're able to pick it out.
Yeah, I was. I just wondered whether there was one access point from the stage and then one going out to the entertainers' camping area. So you said there that so there's only going to be one steward monitoring access to and from the site. And I take it, I mean, the long hours, you're going to have more than one so they can rotate.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, there's no expectation that it would be one, it wouldn't be me there the whole time. There would be a rotation of the stewards, etc. And let's be absolutely clear, the minimum deployment to that area is one steward. That will be fixed at all times. The idea with having the ratio of one steward per 114 for the crowd generally is that we have a greater degree of flex to redeploy as required. The second thing is in terms of the actual timings of this bar and the commencement hours of the bar itself. We're talking about a 6 p.m. start on the Friday and a 4 p.m. start on the Saturday and Sunday. It's not like the other arena bars, it's a later start. And then we're talking about whatever terminal hour Your Honours may or may not be agreeable to at 10 p.m. regardless of the deployments, etc. Someone may come on earlier if it does get busy, but at 10 p.m. then that would be up to 2 fixed stewards, regardless of what's happening elsewhere.
Thanks for that, Mr Hazard. Have you got any further? No. Councillor McPherson.
Oh, thank you. I just note that you say from your application that there'll be no entertainment in the venue, but I wonder, will there be anything like sort of background music or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll answer that. Yeah, there'll be no. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Yeah, there'll be no background music. And just also to note, I mean, like everyone's touched on here, this bar really is just for a breakout space for the artist once they've finished. For me as an organizer, there's, a level of hospitality that we need to deliver for the festival, for these acts to come back and return. We want to try and build something here that they have a good time. So if it's just hard finish, they're obviously going to be a little bit grumbled. And also the reason for charges is that while there's green rooms where people can sit and relax, at the level of when artists travel, they have crew with them to deliver the band, the drum kit and things like that. So there needs to be somewhere like that for them. I don't see this bar being a rowdy backstage area. This is somewhere that we're hoping to deliver a level of hospitality for the acts. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No. In which case, can I ask, does Ms. Cormack want to sum up?
I've got no further comments to make.
Thank you for that. And can I ask, do the police want to sum up?
Hi there. Equally, we don't actually have anything further to add.
Thanks very much for that. And moving to the applicant, do you wish to sum up, Mr. Hazard?
I will say a few words and try and keep it brief. As I say, we've been working hand in glove with the various agencies, very grateful for that. And this is something where I think the general premise of having an area where people can go to after they've finished performing is generally agreed. I mean, with the various agencies, it's now a matter of time. We started with an ideal with a cushion, a run over of the 2 hours. The police have suggested an hour. Ms. Cormack suggested half an hour. The idea that we go beyond it is really what we're looking for, and it's in your honour's hands now as to whether it's appropriate 3 or 2 or whatever. So I hope that conveys the good nature in which we've had these discussions and generally how we wish to conduct ourselves going forward. And thank you for your time and questions.
Thank you very much for that. Can I ask if members wish to retire to consider this application? Receiving nod, so if you'll bear with us, thank you.
Thank you.
So could all members and the Deputy Clerk leave the meeting room for the breakout room? Participants, if you could remain where you are until we return, your microphones will be muted so you'll not be heard while we're away, and a slide will be brought across the screen, but we are aware that your thumbnails may still be visible on the screen, so thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Still good morning, 5 minutes to go. So are we ready to reconvene? And I would like to hand over to the Deputy Clerk to conduct the motion procedure.
Thank you, Convener. Members, you've had a chance to consider this matter in retiro. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I have a motion. In terms of the options open to us on page 127, I'd like to start off by the first part is to restricting the terminal hour to Friday night at 2 a.m, Saturday night 2 a.m, and Sunday night 1 a.m, and thereafter the local conditions which you'll read out.
Thank you, Councillor Ahern. The local conditions proposed are firstly, proposed by Councillor Ahern. Firstly, the licence holder shall at all times operate in accordance with the submitted alcohol management plan, including appendices, and with the site plan. Second condition, the licence holder shall make available to the board copies of refusal logs or other refusal records within 2 months of the event taking place. Third condition, individual bar management team details to be provided to the Licensing Standards Officer no later than Wednesday, 17th August 2022. And fourth local condition, a minimum of 2 SIA registered door supervisors shall be present at the bar access point during all licensed hours, all until half an hour after each day's terminal hour or half an hour after closure of the bar, whichever is the earlier. Councillor Ahern, does that correctly narrate the local conditions?
That's correct, yes.
Members, is there a seconder? Members, is there any amendment? No, Convener. No amendment, Convener, so therefore Licensing Board procedure, we don't take a formal vote, but that's basically carried.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Is there anything else that you want to add?
Nothing from my perspective, just to make clear that the occasional licence application for this bar has been granted. The terminal hours have been restricted on Friday and Saturday nights to 2 a.m. and Sunday night to 1 a.m. and thereafter the 4 local grants subject to mandatory conditions plus the 4 local conditions which was narrated earlier.
Okay, thank you for that, Deputy Clerk. That brings our proceedings to a conclusion. I'd like to thank everybody for their participation and attendance here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Honours. Obliged.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.